Once again, Crew 11 is on its way home a few weeks earlier than originally had been anticipated, but the crew is in good shape, ready for its arrival in the Pacific Ocean for a splashdown in the early morning hours on Thursday, where the SpaceX recovery team will quickly move into action to hoist the Dragon onto the well deck of the recovery ship and extract the crew, with their mission now having been completed. Everything has gone by the book. Endeavour in good shape. The International Space Station now crewed by 3 people: Chris Williams of NASA, Sergei Kud-Sverchkov, and Sergei Mikheyev of Roscosmos. They will be a 3-man crew for the next few weeks until the arrival of the Crew 12 crew on the next SpaceX Crew Dragon that will be launched from the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. With that, we'll wrap it up from Mission Control here in Houston and go back to Ronnie Foreman at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne.
Thanks so much, Rob. With that, Crew 11 has officially departed the International Space Station. As we continue to move a safe distance from the station, we are preparing for that deorbit burn that Rob mentioned. Again, Dragon is targeted to splash down off the coast of San Diego at approximately 12:41 a.m. Pacific time, followed by the crew getting picked up at sea by a SpaceX recovery vessel. As they rest up, our teams here will continue to keep an eye on the weather to ensure a safe return for our Dragon and Crew 11 astronauts. In case you are just joining us, we are following along as our Crew 11 astronauts depart the International Space Station. And right now we're standing by for Dragon to exit the approach ellipsoid, or AE, which is an imaginary football shape that is about 4 kilometers by 2 kilometers by 2 kilometers in the same family as the keep-out sphere, and basically governs the neighborhood of the International Space Station. One of the key differences between the approach ellipsoid that you see on the outside on the graphic in your screen and the keep-out sphere, which is that smaller inner circle, is that vehicles inside of the AE right now, are where we are right now, are on what we call a 24-hour safe free drift trajectory. That means that the spacecraft would not cross into the approach ellipsoid for at least 24 hours again, even if it lost all maneuvering. So we are standing by for that call out to hear that we have exited the AE and that our Crew 11 astronauts continue on their way home. Now, to recap, earlier today, the hatches between the International Space Station and Dragon were closed. Since then, the crew has settled in to begin their 10.5-hour journey back to Earth. The joint NASA and SpaceX teams pulled go to proceed with undocking, and the undock command was then sent, followed by umbilical retraction and hook opening, with physical separation taking place right on schedule at 2:20 p.m. Pacific, as the space station and Dragon were traveling about 260 statute miles south of Australia. Dragon then completed 2 of 4 departure burns and exited the keep-out sphere. We are again now standing by from Dragon crossing the approach ellipsoid to set the spacecraft and Crew 11 up for their path back to Earth. On splashdown tomorrow, we'll be marking the completion of a long-duration science and research mission for these 4 astronauts and the astronauts that were part of the broader expedition who are still on board the International Space Station. So because Dragon is still inside the approach ellipsoid, we are still currently in joint operations. And you're watching Mission Control Houston and Mission Control Hawthorne working together in the two different blocks on your screen. We mentioned this earlier in the webcast too, but you can follow along with Dragon's telemetry in the bottom of your screen. We just had that range measurement come up that you can track, looking at just about 800 meters away from the International Space Station right now. We're also tracking right now that about 1,000 meters or 1 kilometer is going to be the right boundary of that approach ellipsoid. So right now we're watching the number increase, which is exactly what we want to see as our Crew 11 astronauts depart the space station. Again, we are standing by right now for that departure from the approach ellipsoid. You can keep following that, as I mentioned, in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. That is the distance between Dragon and the International Space Station. And we think we'll hit that 1,000-meter, 1 kilometer mark here in just about another minute. If you were with us earlier in the broadcast, you know that we had great views of Dragon as it left the International Space Station. But now that we've moved away from it and we are on the darker side of the Earth, our views have gone offline for now. Obviously, we're still in touch with our astronauts, and we'll bring those images back to you either later in this broadcast or when we pick it up later this evening to follow splashdown and recovery of our Crew 11 astronauts. Coming up on about 970 meters away from the International Space Station. So we should hear that call out any second that we have exited the approach ellipsoid. Tracking 1 kilometer on your screen right there. So right now we're just waiting for that call out over the big loop between Mission Control Houston on the left and Mission Control Hawthorne on the right.
Dragon SpaceX on the big loop. Dragon has exited the approach ellipsoid and is on a safe free drift trajectory. Houston will be taking down the big loop shortly. Expect ISS audio traffic to cease. Following final comms, request swap of audio destination to Dragon to ground. Post swap, contact ground on Dragon to ground via the cabin mic for a comm check.
Dragon copies, in work.
So that announcement we just heard from Mission Control Hawthorne officially marks departure from the approach ellipsoid and the end of joint operations. That's why you heard our team explaining how communications protocols would change from here through the end of the mission. Crew 11 has officially departed the International Space Station. And now we'll expect them back here on Earth about 10.5 hours from now, again splashing down off the coast of San Diego. The crew is currently doffing or removing their spacesuits to settle in for that ride home. Splashdown should be early tomorrow morning at 12:41 a.m. Pacific Time, 2:41 a.m. Central, followed by the crew getting picked up at sea by a SpaceX recovery vessel. As they rest up, our teams here will continue to keep an eye on the weather to ensure safe return for Dragon and our Crew 11 astronauts. Meanwhile, we'll rejoin you for live visual coverage starting roughly 1 hour prior to splashdown, so we'll be back at about 11:40 p.m. Pacific. As always, you can find mission updates on X, at NASA, at SpaceX, and on the web at nasa.gov. Thanks very much for watching. We'll see you on our Crew 11 astronauts again soon.